discovering evidence of a ritual being performed. The temple culminates in the basement, where the players discover that the Yuan-Ti have summoned Seth, one of their gods, from a portal, and the players will have to fight the Yuan-Ti god back into the portal. Just for some quick background, I am using Dungeon Draft in order to create these maps, and I use Roll20 in order to play the game online. The Yuan-Ti temples are set up like Mayan pyramids. My temple was designed from the top bottom, so the players will enter in the smallest portion, and as they work their way down the temple, each room will expand. Alright, let's jump into the first floor of the temple. This will be the smallest floor of the temple, as the players are starting from the top and working their way down the pyramid. This floor is fairly basic, just a small encounter with the Yuan-Ti, but this will begin setting up the dungeon's theme. You may notice the cracks on the ground around the statue. These will fill with blood as the Yuan-Ti fight with the players and as they are killed. The cracks lead to the dungeon's basement, where they are using these sacrifices to summon Seth. As I was running this dungeon, I made sure to mention the bloodshed during the encounter, starting fairly subtly and becoming more detailed and emphasized as the players progressed, so they could kind of key into what was happening. Here we have the second floor of the temple. For encounters, there's a small contingency of Yuan-Ti ready to attack the players as they come down the stairs, although this should be an easy encounter. Once again, there are statues with cracks surrounding them on the floor. I described the Yuan-Ti crawling towards the statues after they were reduced to 0 health. And this is where my group first put together the clues on what was happening with the temple. They also threw me a curveball. And a human in the bottom corner. Looking at them with your perception, you're able to tell that they were killed very recently. And it looks like both of their throats were split and a lot of blood was spilled out. Another thing you notice is that there are cracks in the ground that seem to almost be filling with blood around them.
Oh, are these... This could be like offerings where the blood goes down to like a giant snake in the bottom level, possibly.
Interesting.
That's just a thought. You said giant cracks, right, where the blood's pooled, right?
Yeah. And actually now, Nick, now that you're looking at that, you can see very similar cracks around the statues as well, which is also where the dying corpses kind of drag their bodies right before they died.
Blood down to them. So it's like drainages almost. I see. Right? That makes sense. They wanted to supply their blood to their god. Probably.
Yeah.
Who's at the bottom, ready for us.
So anyone have any poison we can...
Oh,
in the cracks?
yeah. I actually do have 3 poison potions. Give me a second to look through that.
My group ended up not using the poison, although I would have rewarded the ingenuity by reducing the final boss's health by that amount. The other clue in this room is these slave pens on the right side, where the slaves were recently killed by the Yuan-Ti to fuel the ritual. Finally, I have included a dagger of venom in the bottom corner near the weapons rack for the players to find. I think this is a good thematic item to give players during this dungeon. And on to the third floor. For encounters, I had the Yuan-Ti waiting for a sneak attack. This successfully knocked one player unconscious, although if it wasn't the sorcerer leading the charge, it would have been another fairly easy room. I also included a form of a trap in the hatchery, with 2 giant poisonous snakes. I had them attack the first player to enter the room, then ran a quick combat without initiative, as the 11 health snakes were unlikely to survive the round. While I was running this, the players first started to attempt to minimize bloodshed with the Yuan-Ti, fighting the Yuan-Ti away from the statues with the cracks. Depending on their success, I would recommend reducing the final boss's health by around 20, depending on their creativity and likelihood of success of minimizing the bloodshed. To give a quick tour of this floor, on the right there is a bedroom for the Yuan-Ti purebloods, a hatchery, and a torture chamber. Thank you, Volo, for the gruesome details of the Yuan-Ti temples. And a heated bath, a kitchen, and a smithery. In the smithery, I have hidden a ring of poison resistance with an investigation DC of 18 to find. One change I would recommend making to this temple would be to replace this ring with a Staff of the Python. This staff can turn into a giant constrictor snake and fight with the players, something that would be very thematic for a Yuan-Ti temple. Unfortunately, my group already has one. And here we have the ground floor. This floor is mostly covered by the single mini-boss style arena at the center. This small storage room is where I put a little bit of loot for the players, just 20 gold, a few gems, and a lyre that they could sell later. However, this is where I left all the plot relevant details, so make sure to use this and customize it to fit this temple into your campaign. I left a mysterious note from someone who had attacked the Yuan-Ti previously and forced them to raid surrounding towns. Around the edges, we have a large slave pit at the top with even more bodies. A nice, ominous room to keep the players on edge. Once the players got near the center, the Yuan-Ti Broodguard unlocked the final room and fled inside, where the players had to fight an anathema. This can be a potentially deadly encounter because the creature has access to the spell Divine Word, which, depending on the player's health, can instantly kill them. Make sure to save this spell for the second or third round of combat, so the anathema has a chance to reduce their health a little bit. If you're running this temple for a lower level group, one alteration to reduce the difficulty would be to have this as the final room. Volo's Guide to Monsters describes the anathemas as close to divinity and requiring a large sacrifice to be created. As a CR12 monster, this was only a moderate fight for my group, but would be a great final boss for a group of 4 level 8 characters or 5 level 7 characters. For my group, I once again mentioned the cracks on the ground, and this was a great shock to the group as they realized there was more to come after this room. To help make it easier to incorporate this temple into your campaign, I've added an extra map where I remove the staircase in case you are using the anathema as the final boss. And now for the final floor, and then I will cover the boss fight itself. In the basement, the players will be confronted with a portal, being fueled by the sacrifices made on the previous floors. A Yuan-Ti Mind Whisperer greets the players and opens a portal, revealing Seth, or at least a poorly made MS Paint version of him, which I've included if you can't find a better image. When my group ran this, they considered attacking the portal, which I would have allowed, giving it around half the health of the boss, and that's something to keep in mind depending on your group. I thought it was a pretty creative way of handling the fight. I also had the portal fueled by diamonds, totaling 8,000 gold, as the primary loot for the temple, although this can easily be adjusted based on how you're running money in your campaign. And now, let's jump over to the boss's stats and features. And here we have the stat block I used for the fight. This was made by Disman, and I've included a link in the description of this video. At CR16, this is a tougher fight than what is normally recommended, but I feel it's fair when looking into some of the features. At armor class of 18 and health of 247, it will take a long time for your group to kill it, but if the players were keying into the sacrifices on the previous floor, you can subtract off a portion of this health based on their success. I reduced by 20 health for each instance of avoiding the blood sacrifices. Some other reasons this fight is going to be easier for the players is the lack of legendary resistances and legendary actions. So the action economy of the group is going to play a major role in tipping the balance of the fight. This makes it particularly weak to spells like Banishment, which of course, my group used.
So, if you guys want me to dash and try to save my will, otherwise I'm just going to try to use Banishment, because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I would say make him burn that legendary resistance with banishments.
So in the end, my group cheesed the fight, but I still feel they would have been able to successfully finish the encounter without Banishment. The creature only has 1 attack per turn, although it can and did one-shot one of my players. One change I made to the fight was with the regurgitation feature. As written, the Constitution save only triggers when the player inside the creature deals 30 damage, but I decided to adjust it to any player dealing 30 or more damage, with the stipulation that the swallowed player must be unconscious. This can prevent an unfair feeling when a player is swallowed and instantly knocked unconscious, and makes the fight more interactive. This was a lucky decision, because it took a player being swallowed from being at 2 death saves and certainly dead, to being revived because of a massive strike from the party's rogue.
Alright, so another 13 damage.
So total
42.
42 is enough to trigger the regurgitation, as Walker's corpse is regurgitated up after it takes 43.
Live corpse.
All in all, I love this stat block for the final fight, and it was the primary source of inspiration for the creation of this temple. The weaknesses of Seth are particularly fitting, given the circumstances of the fight, but it can still hit like a god. The group is fighting an incredibly powerful being, but one that's not fully summoned to this realm, just sticking its head out of a portal, and one that was summoned by a random group of Yuan-Ti. I also think this makes its weakness to banishment quite fitting, since only being partially summoned would presumably make it weak to being sent back. And that's all I have for the temple. I will include a link to the album of map images, including the adjusted temple with the anathema fight, as well as a link to the stat block in the description. I'm not sure when I'll upload another video. I do have plans to do at least one more upload, a planned cave where the players will jump between the Shadowfell and back, with an emphasis on puzzles. Please let me know if you run this temple and how it goes, as well as any ways I can improve these videos. Thanks for watching.